Hello, family members. Hope you're having a nice day today. I want to talk to you today because I have a question that is just boiling in my brain that I'm not certain I have the answer to, but I think is kind of important in the grand scheme of things. And so I think I'm just going to have to break it down with you right now. So, my question is Epstein another abortion? Here I am, like less than a minute into the video, and we're already getting into the hot topics, right? Yeah. Um, but here's the thing Donald Trump is the leader of his party in the sense that, for the most part, he can go where he wants to go, and the people shall follow. However, there are some topics which he cannot deviate from the base on. One of them is at least pretending to be Christian. He's got to at least give the, reasonable doubt to believe, or the, plausible Christianity. That's what we want. Plausible. Doesn't have to be sincere. It doesn't have to be prominent. It just has to be that, when push comes to shove, he'll make the right noises there. That one's not really a wedge issue so much because there's Christians on both sides, but it is a little bit to a certain extent because you have, preachers from certain churches that tell their voters how to vote and stuff, but that social pressure would probably happen somewhere else in those communities for the most part, I believe. Anyway, the second one is abortion. During the last election, during 2024, sorry, it was obvious that abortion was a hot topic for a lot of people in a lot of places. But when Trump decided to kind of play to the majority opinion on that and try to maybe soften his stance and say, oh, well, I'm not even sure, blah, 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 his base was not having it. They were very direct in confronting him. I remember a particular town hall where he was asked about abortion specifically by some woman in the crowd, and she was clearly distraught at the idea that he might not be as rabidly pro-life as she is. Sorry about the have to dodge her with the microphone cable, sorry. Anyway, so that is one of the issues, one of the few issues where the voters, the base, are in charge when it comes to Trump. Trump has to get in line, no matter what he thinks is best. No matter what his personal opinion is, although I don't think he values that at all. But when it comes to doing what he has to do politically. However, I think that he thought it would be politically advantageous in a general sense to at least have some sort of wiggle room on abortion, and his supporters, his real true supporters, just won't have that. They just won't. It's one of the ways that he is actually not the leader of his party, but rather a figurehead. So, when it comes to the issue of the Epstein files, of the real truth of the vast sexual human trafficking network that clearly has been under prosecuted because Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted under the premise that there was clients and there was a client list and there were other people who were involved in this ring besides just Jeff Epstein. But digging into that is not something that anyone in power really wants to do. I mean, there are a few people that you might run into that are, maybe in Congress, like House of Representatives types, the few odd people. But a lot of them know that there's a lot that's going to reflect badly on so many rich and influential people, not just in politics. Like Jeffrey Epstein was connected to an awful lot of people. An awful lot of people were complicit or involved in his massive network of crimes. It's something that just absolutely captures the imagination of Trump's base and was part of the foundation of what made QAnon what it was, And anyone who is looking at things sort of from a factual, objective reality would have seen it coming a million miles away that Trump would never want full transparency here, because he was literally Epstein's best friend. And we know that he's a, sex pest. We know that. That's not even something anyone's in doubt about. It's been adjudicated by law that he is not a guy that is all moral and good when it comes to his sexual gratification, right? Oh, Cammy, you have to keep courting me. She's so cute though, look at her. Oh, mama baby. Anyway, so I think that this response that we're seeing to the Trump administration attempting to change the subject, very, very vociferously attempting to change the subject by all sorts of jangly keys on string, that they're trying to dazzle us with over here. Oh, pay attention to this. Oh, pay attention to that. Oh, pay attention to this. He really, really wants to change the subject, because what his base wants is not something he can provide. Not without harming people he doesn't care to harm, which may very well, and probably does, include himself. He's not going to do that. Not willingly. This isn't like the abortion thing where he doesn't really care. He might think politically that it's more advantageous to have a more moderate position, but he honestly does not care well enough that if he thought it was not politically advantageous, he'd be as far into it as the most ardent pro-lifers are. It's just, he is happy to go where the winds blow, when the wind is blowing, most of the time, as long as it's going to benefit him ultimately. And he is not in the same position at all with this Epstein investigation. When people want the transparency, when they want a full accounting of what happened, if they want to believe that the issue has been fully investigated and everyone that is implicated is prosecuted, that is not something that Trump can deliver. It's just not. He can't. He literally cannot. Because at the end of the day, full accountability would mean accountability for him. And he has set up a system where he is above accountability. He's got the Supreme Court in his pocket. It does not matter what crimes he is convicted of, he is just not sentenced to anything. It's, a situation where it's impossible to fully punish everyone involved in this whole affair, because more than likely one of the key figures that maybe needs to be held accountable is literally unable to be held accountable. What the base wants is impossible. So where is something going to give? Are the base going to abandon him completely over this? I don't know. I believe the good portion of the base would fully abandon him over abortion if he changed his public position on abortion. I have no trouble believing that he would lose millions of his supporters, because they really legitimately believe that abortion is murder, and all of the weird lies that he's told and other Republicans have told about, like, people using abortion as birth control all the way up to 9th month and stuff like that. And it's like, late term abortions are just, they're usually medically necessary. They're not usually anything that is done as a form of birth control, which is the main, reason that people, that conservative evangelicals say that they hate abortion so much, is because they see abortion as something that enables people to have sexual freedom, which is something that they absolutely abhor. They might tell themselves it's because they believe that the fetuses are alive, but I mean, if they read the Bible says life starts with the first breath. So they're not coming from a biblical position when they try to frame abortion as murder. Really what they want is they want to use that framing to be able to have that outrage level. Oh, it's murder, when really what they're upset about is sexual freedom. Now, not everybody is consciously aware of that, I will say. But the reason why that community has taken that stance is because of that underlying hatred of sexual freedom. And I think the Epstein thing is also a little bit connected to that, right? I mean, there is an element of resisting sexual freedom when you resist the actions of a man like Epstein, who, allegedly, at the very least, encouraged people to be unfaithful, to have sex outside of marriage, lots of things that are extremely taboo to the most conservative evangelicals. And so there is an element of that deep, dark hatred of people who engage in actions that lead to sex outside of marriage. But there's a big but here. We are talking about a patriarchal society, and there are a lot of people in the base who really hate extramarital sex, but also kind of think that if a man is rich and powerful enough, that he kind of should be able to do whatever he wants. Even if it's not really moral, they're willing to look the other way because they feel like, that's what they would want. That's their power fantasy. They want to live vicariously through these figures like Donald Trump, okay? So that's where my sort of like conflict, where I could see this going either way, kind of comes from. I think it's quite possible that the base will not tolerate this, or that at least a part of the base will splinter. But maybe not. Maybe not. You know? Are they going to treat the Epstein investigation that needs to happen, the transparency that was promised but then denied, as something that is as much of a red line as abortion and moderating on abortion? And if so, if they treat it that way, what's their response going to be? Because again, this is not something that Trump can just accommodate them on. He can't. He literally cannot. So he can't give in. So they're either going to have to give in, or something completely out of left field is going to happen. This could be a base breaker, but it also could be something that we're not even talking about in a few months. Because if he successfully changes the conversation, then media will follow. It's the base that has to make that decision, though. Because the media knows the base is the one that pays their bills too. And at the end of the day, you think about like Fox News after the 2020 election. They didn't really want to have any part in election denial, but when they didn't go all in on it, and then they started slipping in the ratings, when the base started punishing them for not going along with the party line, they crumpled right away. And so goes Fox News, so goes the public conversation, because a lot of non-conservative media reacts to what is being said and done in conservative media. And so if they can change the subject for their base, then their base's preferred media will follow, and then the greater media will follow. And that'll be it. And we'll probably rarely ever hear of Jeff Epstein again. But it's really, 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 really up to the base at this point. And it's really hard to know which way it's going to go. Which one of several ways it's going to go. Because I've heard people from the base who are extremely angry over this. Very disillusioned. Willing to say, we were fooled. Donald Trump is, a horrible person. But will that stick? Will it be enough of them? How many of them really sincerely care enough about this? I mean, they've seen the Access Hollywood tape. They've heard about how when he owned, beauty pageant for teenagers, he used that as an excuse to go backstage and see teenagers in states of undress. We know that he said that if he was not related to his daughter, he would want to have sex with her and date her. This is a man who is all kinds of sexual deviant. And he has been the figurehead of a base that hates sexual deviance. And this is where it all comes to a head. How much do they really care? I guess we'll find out. All right, family members, let me know what you think. Look at this dog. Isn't she cute? Oh, she's my baby. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.